In 2026, every motorcycle brand claims dominance. Every spec sheet promises perfection, but only a few machines actually deliver it on the road, on the track, and over years of real ownership. Today, we are counting down 10 Japanese motorcycles that do not just compete, they absolutely humiliate the rest of the industry. From race-bred superbikes to long-distance legends, every bike on this list earned its place. And if you care about performance that lasts and value that holds up, you will want to stay with us to number 1. Number 10. Suzuki GSXR1000R. Let us open this countdown with a name that never needed hype to earn respect. The Suzuki GSXR1000R returns as a sharpened answer to a simple question: can a modern leader-class bike still feel purpose-built, or has everything become overfiltered? Suzuki's response is a machine that brings race grid focus back into the conversation, without pricing itself into exotic territory. At the center lives a 999.8 cubic centimeter liquid, cooled inline 4, updated to meet current emissions rules without losing its appetite for revs. Output sits right around 192 horsepower, with roughly 81 pound-feet of torque arriving high in the range, backed by a steep compression ratio and reinforced internals designed for sustained hard use. This power plant is not tuned for Dino bragging rights alone. It is built to repeat performance when the heat builds and the laps stack up. The chassis is where the personality sharpens. Showa balance, free front forks, and a BFRC light. Rear shock keep the bike settled under heavy braking and confident when leaned over at speed. A Bosch-based electronics package layers in traction control, launch assist, cornering anti-lock braking, lift management, and a bi-directional quick shifter, giving experienced riders support without muting feedback through the bars and pegs. Now here is where the humiliation argument becomes concrete: money. In the United States market, pricing typically lands around the high $17,000 range, depending on edition and dealer fees. Comparable European leader bikes frequently push well past $20,000 before options. On the used side, clean recent GSXR1000R models often trade between roughly $15,000 and $17,000, giving riders superbike capability without exotic ownership costs. And if this is the kind of real, no-hype breakdown you have been looking for, real specs, real prices, real performance, hit that like button, drop a hype in the comments, and subscribe. Because if this is what you want more of, that support is what keeps us committed to bringing you the deepest motorcycle content on YouTube. The GSXR1000R does not chase luxury, it reasserts the superbike baseline, but outright top end is only one form of dominance. Next comes a machine that attacks the same class from a completely different angle, not by screaming higher, but by changing the pulse you feel every time the throttle moves. Number 9. Yamaha YZFR1. If the last machine reestablished the superbike baseline, this one changes how that performance feels in your hands. The Yamaha YZF stands as Japan's most distinctive leader class statement, built around an engine character that separates it from the entire field before you even leave the pit lane. At the heart sits a 998 cubic centimeter liquid, cooled inline 4 using Yamaha's crossplane crankshaft layout. Instead of the typical high-rev scream, this design spaces out combustion pulses to give a more connected throttle sensation and a broader, more controllable surge through the middle of the rev range. Output lands right around 200 horsepower with roughly 83 pound-feet of torque, delivered in a way that feels measured rather than explosive. It is speed you can meter, not just unleash. The chassis and electronics package work like a second nervous system. A 6-axis inertial measurement unit feeds data to lean-sensitive traction control, slide regulation, wheel lift management, launch assist, and cornering anti-lock braking. Fully adjustable inverted KYB forks and a race-developed aluminum frame keep the front end precise on turn-in, while strong radial-mounted brakes provide firm, repeatable stopping power when things get serious. Now let us make the dominance practical. In the United States, MSRP typically begins around $19,000, with out-the-door numbers often crossing into the low $20,000 range depending on location. European rivals with similar technology frequently stretch well beyond that. On the pre-owned side, clean recent examples commonly sit between $15,000 and $19,000, offering elite performance without elite ownership stress. If you've been here a while, you already know what Iron Pulse is about. We drop the essentials: old school, rider-made style; the cap, for long miles and windy days; the T, for the garage, the ride, and everywhere in between. The Mug, for early starts and late nights planning the next run. No hype, just the mark. 20% off right now. Link in the description down below. This bike proves that control can outmatch excess. But Japan's dominant story does not stop at balance. Next comes a machine that flips expectations entirely, delivering astonishing performance from an engine size most riders would never expect to threaten bigger bikes at all. Number 8. Honda CBR600RR. Now the story pivots. After 2-liter class heavy hitters, Japan proves domination is not about size, it is about precision. The Honda CBR600RR keeps the middleweight supersport category alive in 2026, not as a relic, but as a sharp-edged tool built for riders who value control, feel, and corner speed over brute force. Its heart is a 599 cubic centimeter liquid, cooled in line 4 with double overhead cams and a compression ratio just over 12:1. A short stroke design lets this engine spin freely toward redline, delivering roughly 113 horsepower with about 48 pound-feet of torque. The power builds with urgency up top, rewarding riders who carry momentum and keep the engine singing rather than relying on low-end shove. The chassis carries Honda's racing fingerprints. A lightweight aluminum frame works with a fully adjustable inverted Showa fork and a Unit Pro Link rear shock, giving the bike a planted, communicative feel mid-corner. Radial-mounted front brakes supply strong, predictable stopping force, and the compact wheelbase helps the bike change direction with almost telepathic quickness. Bigger motorcycles often have more output, but few can match this level of agility when the road tightens. And if you have ever ridden a middleweight like this, where corner speed matters more than straight line power, tell us in the comments. Have you experienced that momentum rider feeling, or do you still prefer big horsepower? Share your experience, because real-world feedback from riders like you helps everyone here make smarter choices. Here is where the value story becomes impossible to ignore. In the United States, MSRP sits around the low $11,000 range, with anti-lock braking versions landing near $12,500. That is genuine track-ready performance for the price many riders pay for far heavier machines. On the used market, clean examples commonly fall between $7,000 and $12,000, making ownership approachable without sacrificing capability. The CBR 600RR wins through balance, not intimidation. But the next motorcycle throws balance out the window entirely. A small displacement machine that screams to the sky and embarrasses larger bikes in a way that almost feels unfair. Number 7. Kawasaki Ninja ZX4RR. At this point, the countdown steps into a segment most manufacturers quietly abandoned: compact supersport motorcycles. Kawasaki did the opposite. They doubled down, engineered without restraint, and exposed just how complacent the rest of the industry has become. The 2026 Ninja ZX4RR is not a small sport bike in any meaningful sense. It is a precision weapon that embarrasses larger machines by refusing to play by outdated rules. At its core sits a 399 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled dual overhead cam inline 4, a layout almost extinct in this displacement class. With a compression ratio of 12.3:1, the engine produces roughly 77 horsepower at the wheel, climbing to around 80 with ram air assistance, and delivers approximately 29 pound-feet of torque near the upper end of the rev range. What matters is not the number itself, but the experience. The power builds with surgical intensity, rewarding riders who understand throttle control and mechanical feedback. This is an engine that feels alive, not filtered. The chassis reinforces that intent. A rigid steel trellis frame is paired with fully adjustable Showa, inverted forks, and a Showa BFRC light rear shock, creating stability and corner accuracy that many middleweight bikes still struggle to match. Braking performance comes from radial-mounted 4-piston front calipers, gripping dual 290mm discs, delivering consistent, confidence-building stopping power lap after lap. Quick pit stop. I went out and put together a short list of the best rider tools and gadgets, the stuff that actually saves your day on the road. Here are all the essentials. It's all linked in the description under Grab the Gear here. It doesn't cost you anything extra, it just helps support the channel. Now back to it. Kawasaki did not cheap out on electronics either. Traction control, selectable power modes, an up and down quick shifter, and advanced rider displays are all standard equipment, effectively erasing the feature gap between this machine and far more expensive sport bikes. For 2026, pricing sharpens the argument. New models land around 10,000 United States dollars before destination fees, while lightly used examples retain value remarkably well, often hovering just below new pricing. Reliability feedback remains strong, with no recurring mechanical issues reported when properly maintained. The Ninja ZX4RR proves something uncomfortable for the rest of the market. You do not need excess displacement to dominate, but not every rider wants to chase redline to feel authority. Some want power that arrives instantly without waiting for the needle to climb, and that demand points directly to the next motorcycle in this countdown. Because the next machine does not build pressure, it releases it. Number 6. Yamaha MT10SP. The Yamaha MT10SP exists to prove that Japanese dominance is not limited to racetracks. It thrives on actual pavement, imperfect roads, and everyday riding conditions. In 2026, this hyper-naked continues to outclass rivals by blending brutal thrust, advanced control systems, and long-term ownership sanity into one aggressive package. At the heart of the MT10SPS ITS Yamaha's CP4 crossplane inline 4, a 998 cubic centimeter engine descended from the YZFR1 with a bore and stroke of 79.0 by 50.9 millimeters and a 12:1 compression ratio. This motor is tuned for immediacy rather than drama. Power delivery is dense and muscular, producing roughly 163 horsepower and about 82 pound-feet of torque. The result is instant response in the mid-range, the kind that launches you past traffic without a downshift or a second thought. What truly separates the MT10SP from global competitors is intelligence. A full 6-axis IMU manages lean-sensitive traction control, slide control, lift control, cornering ABS, engine brake strategies, and multiple ride modes. Add electronically controlled Öhlins suspension front and rear, constantly adapting to road conditions, and you get a machine that feels composed whether carving back roads or grinding through city miles. In the United States, pricing lands in the high $17,000 range before destination, undercutting European hyper-nakeds that demand more money while delivering less reliability. The CP4 platform has already earned a reputation for durability, keeping long-term ownership stress refreshingly low. The MT10SP dominates because it understands how riders actually ride. But what happens when dominance is no longer about aggression or adrenaline? What if the next machine wins by erasing fatigue, devouring distance, and redefining comfort at speed? That shift is coming, and the next entry rewrites the rules entirely. Number 5. Honda Goldwing Tour. This is where we shift away from aggression and into absolute dominance through refinement. The Honda Goldwing Tour stands as the machine that proves long-distance riding does not require sacrifice. In 2026, it remains the touring benchmark because no competitor blends endurance, composure, and mechanical polish quite like this. At its core is Honda's horizontally opposed flat 6, displacing 1,833 cubic centimeters. With a perfectly square bore and stroke of 73 millimeters and a 10.5:1 compression ratio, the engine prioritizes balance over bravado. Output sits at roughly 126 horsepower with about 125 pound-feet of torque, delivered in a wave so smooth it feels detached from speed itself. Whether paired with the 6-speed manual or Honda's refined dual-clutch transmission, power flows through a shaft drive built for decades, not seasons. The Goldwing Tour humiliates rivals through engineering discipline. A double wishbone front suspension isolates braking forces, keeping the chassis calm even when fully loaded. The single-sided pro-arm rear end enhances stability while simplifying maintenance. Braking hardware remains confident under passenger and cargo weight, and ergonomics are tuned to erase fatigue hour after hour. And if you have ever done serious miles on a touring bike like this, full days in the saddle, back-to-back states, real long-distance travel, let us know in the comments. Did comfort actually change how far you were willing to ride? Or did fatigue still win in the end? Share your experience, because long-haul riders know the difference between comfortable and truly effortless travel. Technology reinforces that advantage. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, cruise control, intelligent ride modes, and generous luggage capacity transform 1,000-mile days into routine travel rather than endurance tests. In the United States, pricing lives in the upper $20,000 range, yet ownership costs remain surprisingly sane thanks to legendary Honda reliability and resale strength. The Goldwing Tour does not chase excitement, it outlasts it. But what if comfort was only half the story? What if a touring machine refused to surrender speed? Because next, Japan fuses long-range luxury with something no rival dared to add, and the rules are about to be broken. Number 4, Kawasaki Ninja H2SXSE. Some motorcycles feel like logical evolutions. This one feels like engineers were told to ignore limits. The Kawasaki Ninja H2SXSE occupies a space almost nobody else dares to enter: supercharged sport touring, where brutal acceleration and long-haul comfort share the same chassis. Its 998 cubic centimeter inline 4 uses a factory-built supercharger, producing right around 197 horsepower and roughly 101 pound-feet of torque. The boost is tuned for relentless mid-range thrust, making highway passes feel effortless, even with luggage and a passenger on board. A trellis frame, semi-active electronic suspension, and powerful Brembo brakes keep the bike stable at high speed while remaining composed over rough pavement. Radar-assisted cruise control, blind spot monitoring, lean-sensitive rider aids, and a quick shifter create a control system that feels closer to aerospace than traditional motorcycling. Now the number that grabs attention: United States pricing sits around $28,500. That sounds high until you realize few motorcycles at any price offer supercharged performance with real touring comfort. On the used market, examples often fall between $18,000 and $24,000, which borders on absurd value for this level of engineering. The H2SXSE does not compromise, it overwhelms. But what happens when speed no longer matters? When traction, durability, and survival become the true measures of dominance? Because next, the pavement disappears, and Japan answers with something entirely different. Number 3, Honda Africa Twin CRF1100L. This is where dominance stops being theoretical and starts being proven the hard way. The Honda Africa Twin CRF1100L represents Japanese authority in the one category that punishes weakness without mercy: adventure riding. In 2026, it continues to embarrass rivals not through excess, but through balance, resilience, and trust earned far from pavement. Power comes from a 1,084 cubic centimeter parallel twin designed for control rather than drama. With a bore and stroke of 92 by 81.5 millimeters and a 10.5 to 1 compression ratio, the engine produces roughly 101 horsepower and about 83 pound-feet of torque. That torque arrives low and stays usable, making slow technical climbs, loose terrain, and loaded highway miles feel equally manageable. The chassis reinforces that versatility. Long travel suspension absorbs punishment without wallowing, while strong braking hardware and a 6-axis IMU manage traction, cornering, ABS, and terrain-specific ride modes. Nothing here feels fragile or overstressed. Everything feels intentional. Pricing in the United States typically starts in the mid-teens, with well-kept used examples often landing much lower, giving riders global range capability without luxury, brand ownership costs. Honda's reputation for durability and straightforward service keeps long-term expenses predictable. The Africa Twin wins by surviving where others struggle. But maybe endurance is not your definition of superiority. Maybe dominance means raw force, shock value, and straight-line brutality. Because next, Japan answers subtlety with something unapologetically violent, and the muscle bike world still has not recovered. Number 2, Yamaha VMax. This is where trends stop mattering and raw authority takes over. The Yamaha VMax occupies a space so extreme that even years after its discontinuation, nothing has truly replaced it. In 2026, this muscle bike legend still humiliates modern machines by doing exactly what it was built to do: accelerate harder than anything else on two wheels. At its core sits a 1,679 cubic centimeter 65-degree V4, naturally aspirated and unapologetically mechanical. With a bore and stroke of 90 by 66 millimeters and an 11.3 to 1 compression ratio, the VMax delivers right around 200 horsepower and roughly 123 pound-feet of torque. No boost, no gimmicks, just immediate violent thrust that hits the rider in the chest and refuses to taper off. Now the numbers that matter. Clean used examples in the United States often range from around $14,000 up to roughly $22,000 depending on condition. That buys performance. Many new bikes twice as expensive still struggle to match. Yamaha durability and strong parts. Availability keep ownership grounded. And if this countdown has already made you rethink what dominance really looks like, now is the moment to show it. Hit that like button, And if you want deeper breakdowns like this every week, consider becoming a member and getting early access to our newest videos. That support is what allows us to keep building lists at this level. The VMax does not compete, it intimidates. But intimidation alone does not define the ultimate motorcycle. True supremacy requires speed, stability, comfort, technology, and reliability, all working together. And one Japanese machine was engineered from the start to deliver exactly that balance. What comes next is not just powerful, it is complete. Number 1. Suzuki Hayabusa. At the top, there is no debate, only acceptance. The Suzuki Hayabusa is not just another fast motorcycle, it is the standard every high-speed machine still gets measured against, and in 2026, it remains brutally relevant. A 1,340 cubic centimeter inline-4 produces about 190 horsepower and roughly 111 pound-feet of torque, delivered with a smooth, relentless surge from low RPM all the way through the top end. The power never feels frantic, just endlessly strong, the kind of thrust that shrinks highways and makes long-distance speed feel effortless. A twin-spar aluminum frame, stretched wheelbase, and wind-cutting bodywork create legendary stability when velocity climbs. Fully adjustable suspension, powerful Brembo front brakes, and a 6-axis inertial system bring modern control through traction management, launch assist, cornering anti-lock braking, and a quick shifter. Now the number that seals its crown, United States pricing, sits around $18,800. That undercuts many European flagships by thousands while delivering comparable performance with far less ownership drama. Used examples often cost dramatically less, yet still carry a reputation for durability. Few high-performance bikes can match. It does not chase hype, it defines the benchmark. And once you have felt that level of complete capability, every other motorcycle starts to feel like a compromise. And if this countdown changed the way you look at Japanese motorcycles, if it made you rethink what real performance, real value, and real engineering actually mean, then your next stop is waiting. Click the next video and continue this road trip through the machines that shape our riding lives. Join the tribe by subscribing so you never miss what is coming next. And if you want to support the channel and get early access to our newest work, become a member.